Welcome to Connect, the monthly series to connect you with your community. In each episode, we speak with experts, innovators, and community members, and together explore themes of loneliness, social connection, and healthy aging across Massachusetts. I'm your host, Sandra Harris, the state president for AARP Massachusetts and co-leader of the Massachusetts Coalition to Build Community and End Loneliness. 1 in 4 Americans reports they rarely or never feel as though there are people who understand them. They feel disconnected from others and are at a greater risk of being lonely and socially isolated. Research reveals that lacking connections to others puts us at a greater risk for heart disease, dementia, stroke, and depression, and can increase the risk of premature death to levels comparable to smoking daily. The Surgeon General has declared that we have become a lonely nation, declaring loneliness a public health crisis that must be fixed. He calls on all of us to join in to fight this epidemic. As we learned from the recent pandemic, loneliness and social isolation can have a profound impact on all members of our society. However, as we return to our pre-COVID ways of life, we must not forget those vulnerable populations that continue to live in loneliness. These include older adults living alone, young people between the ages of 18 and 25, young mothers, caregivers, members of the LGBTQ+ community, immigrants, and individuals living with disabilities. Today, we'll take a look at the nearly 25 million Americans who, according to the American Foundation for the Blind, are living with vision loss. To bring understanding of the social health needs of individuals living with visual impairment is Amy Ruell, Director of Social Services at the Massachusetts Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired. Welcome, Amy. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm delighted to be here.
Amy, you are a strong advocate for uplifting the voices of those living with visual loss. Can you please share your work and why this work is so important to you?
Yes, I have been involved in one capacity or another with the blind and visually impaired community throughout my life. I was fortunate to have been born blind and have had many opportunities as a result, including the opportunity to get an excellent education and to be among the 30% of working-age blind people who are employed. But one of the things that my most recent work has acquainted me with is the difficulties and challenges that those people who lose vision later in life experience. Because for many people, actually most people, about 70% of people who lose vision and become blind or nearly blind, 70% of those are over the age of 65. And the challenges that they face are quite different from my experiences. And so in my work at the Mass Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, I've had the privilege to learn from this population and to better understand the importance of providing services to people who are often neglected.
What is the mission of the Massachusetts Association for the Blind and Visual Impairment?
The Mass Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, or MABV as we call it, is really designed to assist people in their journey with visual impairment. One of the things we often say is that there's no one correct way to manage visual disability. Everyone has a very different experience, and it was determined by everything from personality and prior experiences and the availability of resources and supports. We also think that it's very important that whenever possible, that the people who provide services to people living with visual disabilities are mentors and people who have visual disabilities themselves. Because one of the things that this provides is an opportunity to provide mentorship and understanding in a way that people without visual disabilities have more difficulty.
Amy, what are some of the unique obstacles or barriers people living with visual loss face that may be different from those who are just generally lonely?
I think one of the most obvious barriers is lack of transportation. Most people use vision for everything until they can't. And particularly if you don't live within the city, it may be very difficult to get from place to place, even places that you've frequented all your life. And the lack of transportation is a real barrier. Another barrier that exists is that for many people who are living with visual disabilities and decreasing vision, it can be quite overwhelming to try to traverse spaces that, particularly unfamiliar environments, when you no longer can rely on your vision to assist you. So for example, lighting can make a huge difference. It can be difficult for many to recognize faces. And for many people, they haven't learned the compensatory skills that are available and that are necessary to be able to move comfortably and competently in their communities. And so those are tremendous barriers that people need to learn to surmount. Sometimes social situations, particularly crowded rooms and areas where there are a lot of noise, can be particularly difficult for people with visual impairments to manage, because again, they don't have the visual stimuli that they are so accustomed to using to manage those environments and situations, and need to learn to use other senses and other skills to manage those situations. But I think the other thing that underlies so much of this and provides perhaps the greatest challenge is that when you think about it, in most instances, I would say 99% of the population, if you use the word blind and someone just free associates, the words that come to people's minds are not independent, self-sufficient, capable. The stereotypic images of blindness and visual impairment are very insidious and they are very pervasive. And most people who acquire visual disabilities learn and believe that life may be over for them. And in many ways, the society often minimizes the capacities of people with visual impairments. And this may make it much more difficult for people to go out of their homes, to embrace opportunities, to learn new skills, and to feel worthy. Okay. For many people also, it's very difficult because they may feel that they're going to have to be totally dependent upon others, which is uncomfortable for many who have been the master of their own lives for so many years.
For those who have experienced vision loss, where and how do they obtain the skills to navigate their lives? How do they gain the kinds of things, learn about the kinds of things that you've just described?
I think the first thing to do for people, and perhaps this is one of the most difficult things, is to reach out, find out what's available out there. Unfortunately, often many doctors, many eye doctors do not tell people that there are resources available, do not tell people that there is hope and life after visual disability. And so it's really important to reach out and find out what resources are available in your community. Get family members and friends to assist you in that quest if you have lost the capacity or don't know how to use the internet and other online resources. Make phone calls, contact your local senior center, see what is available. Because in fact, there are many resources that are available to people. And sometimes you never know what kinds of opportunities and resources that you can uncover unless you ask. So for just as an example, the Massachusetts Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, we have a number of services available. With a doctor's referral and insurance approval, we have occupational therapists with special training in vision rehabilitation who can come to your home and teach you alternative techniques for managing daily living activities, such as cooking or finding lighting resources that may be helpful, helping you to use magnification or a screen reader to access smartphones or computers. We also have nearly 36 support groups around the state for people over age 55, which are run by coordinators who themselves are blind or visually impaired. We have groups available by phone, hybrid groups that combine in-person and Zoom meetings, and in-person groups in many communities around the state. In addition to those services, we have a volunteer program where we try to recruit one-on-one volunteers who can assist you with tasks such as reading mail, helping you get to the grocery store to do grocery shopping, perhaps helping you to go for a walk in your neighborhood, or taking you to the gym in your community, or helping you to pay bills, which may be more difficult with loss of vision. We have assistive technology training done by folks with visual impairments in 10 different centers across the state, where we teach people how to use iPads and iPhones and Android phones and computers using technology, special technology that's available that will help you to enlarge the print and provide extra contrast, or help you to use a screen reader to navigate and to gain information. And finally, the newest service that I started actually when I came to the organization a few years ago, we have an adjustment counseling program where we have trained clinicians with master's degrees who provide counseling around adjustment to visual disability over the phone, which removes the barrier of transportation, so you don't have to travel to us and we don't have to travel to you. And we combine general therapeutic techniques with additional support and provision of resources and mentorship, so that people who feel so often that people don't understand them, and who feel alone, and who are not comfortable necessarily expressing some of their fears, even to family and friends, have a forum where they can do so in a safe environment.
Are there any assistive technologies that can be used for making connections and alleviating feelings of loneliness that you can think of and recommend?
Absolutely. So technology makes a tremendous difference in terms of accessing resources and providing opportunities for social connections. And that's one thing that I think was exacerbated, and perhaps is one of the few good things about the pandemic, in that I think there are more opportunities than there once were. Now, technology is a tremendous tool that can be used once you know how to use it. But it does require training, and requires some understanding of how to use it, particularly if you have a visual disability and are not accustomed to doing things either without vision or with diminished vision. But there are lots of opportunities. I'll give you just a few examples.
Okay, good.
So for example, one of the things that's changed is that because of platforms like Zoom, people can access all sorts of online forums and discussion groups that are available for people with visual disabilities. There are lots of YouTube channels that people can find on the internet and can use to learn how to do things or to connect with other people. The National Federation of the Blind and the American Council of the Blind, which are the two national consumer organizations of blind people, have lots of forums and publications that are available online. And even in terms of accessing information, one of the things that I recently did for our community was to do a Zoom meeting on podcasts, which provide a lot of opportunities for people to obtain information largely in audio. And that increases access to information exponentially for people who can no longer read print. In addition to which, there are lots of resources and information that can be used to access additional sources. For example, people who can access books and magazines from the Library of Congress Braille and Talking Book program. And in Massachusetts, that is run through the Perkins School for the Blind library. There is a service on that from the library where you can listen to and access over 400 newspapers and magazines across the country free of charge, either with a smartphone or even with a traditional touch-tone telephone or via email. In addition to those things, there are lots of ways of accessing additional information through what we call visual interpreter services. Mm-hmm. So there are two that come immediately to mind. One is a free service called Be My Eyes, in which if you have a smartphone with a camera, you can call a volunteer and they can see what is on your camera and help you to identify objects, give you directions, read documents to you. And there's another service that is a paid service called IRA, A-I-R-A, which does something similar, but for a fee. And their agents, as they call them, are actually paid and are bonded. So you can even exchange secure information, such as credit cards, that you may not be willing to give to a volunteer. So there are lots of opportunities. We, as I said, from the Mass Association for the Blind, we have support groups available to people, which are done over the phone, over just a touch-tone telephone. And one of the things that we offer for people who may not even feel comfortable using a telephone to call in a series of numbers, we have the Zoom capacity to call you to attend one of our groups, and then all you have to do is pick up the phone, and you can be connected to other people who are in a room or who are also on the phone.
So how does one find these resources? Is there a link to all of these on your website?
One thing you can do is to call our intake line, which is at 888-613-2777. And we have a clinician on staff who can help you to connect with resources, whether they are things that we provide or whether there are external resources that we're aware of. We also do have resources on our website, and I have a set of resources which is about 30 plus pages of all sorts of local and national resources that are available that I am happy to distribute via email or in large print if needed.
Okay, good. So Amy, how does one balance the desire for independence with the need for social connections? What advice would you give?
Well, I actually believe that all of us are dependent. We're all interdependent to some extent. And I think that one of the hardest things about having a disability is having to ask other people for assistance. I've been doing this all my life, and I do it as little as I have to, but it is really hard to ask people for assistance in many ways because you don't want to inconvenience people and you don't want to be a burden. And for so many people, that is one of the greatest hurdles to get over. But I think one of the things that I've had to learn is that there are ways you can reciprocate. So, whether you need a ride to a particular appointment or you need assistance in identifying the items in your refrigerator, or whether you need assistance to pay bills, for example, you can reciprocate. You can be a person who is a good listener. You can perhaps provide entertainment if you have a skill set, such as providing people with a blanket that you've knitted. That would not be my forte, let me tell you. But perhaps cooking something for them, or providing someone with babysitting assistance, or perhaps taking someone out to lunch if you've gone out food shopping. And I think one of the things that I've often underestimated is that sometimes people just enjoy assisting others and find it rewarding just to have your company. And I think that if you can learn to do as much as you can for yourself while giving other people the opportunities to help, and if you think about ways in which you can give back, you may find that everyone benefits. Visual disability is often feared more than cancer, and in some circles, even death. And so I think it is really difficult for many people to conceive of the fact that people with visual impairments can retain much of the same capacity, that they may have to do things differently, but they can. I will tell you that one of the things which I encounter on a regular basis when I'm speaking with family members and friends on the phone is they'll say, well, my fill in the blank, mother, father, sister, may need to go into a nursing home because they don't see well any longer. And that is not necessary. And yet that is what most people think. I have people, when I tell them, and I sometimes do disclose that I am blind, people say, you don't sound blind. Well, what does that mean? I've often wondered, and occasionally even had the temerity to ask. And one person said to me recently, well, you sound intelligent and articulate and you're working. And I said, yes, and blind people do all of those things and are all of those things. So one of the things I'll say is challenge your own stereotypic thinking. Do not make assumptions. The second thing I would say is ask people what would be helpful to them. People who are new to visual impairment may not be sure what's most helpful, but ask people. Don't make assumptions. And try to include people. Don't make an assumption that people are going to want to stay in their own little bubble. Even if somebody says no initially, invite them. to go for a ride or to go with you to the senior center or to enjoy a concert or go to a movie. Ask what they would like. Don't make assumptions. Try to include people as much as possible. Talk to them directly. And when you encounter, as you undoubtedly will, well-meaning members of the public who perhaps when you go to a restaurant say things like, "What does she want for dinner?" Don't answer. Let the person with the visual disability answer themselves. I've learned over the years that humor can be most helpful. And so I'll say, in that situation, I will say, "I don't know what she wants, but this is what I'll have." And I do that in order to make a point, but to try to do it in a way that is gentle, because I recognize that most people don't know how to talk with people with visual impairments. And I guess the other thing I would say is, don't forget that the person that you are close to and that you're connected to is the same person they've always been. They have the same strengths and capacities as they always have. They may be initially dismayed and uncertain about how to move forward, but they have those same strengths. And if you need help because this is something that impacts not only the person with the disability, but every person around them, ask for help yourself.
This has been wonderful. But before you go, what is the one thing you would like to leave with someone who is viewing today, who maybe or know someone who is visually impaired and lonely?
I think probably the most important message I can give is that there is hope. That life isn't over because you or someone in your life has a visual impairment. Life isn't over. There are lots of opportunities and ways that you can continue to experience life and enjoy social connections with others and to grow.
Amy, thank you so much for your expertise in guiding us to better understanding of the needs of our neighbors who are living with visual loss, and for the great work that you are doing on their behalf. And thanks to you, our audience. We hope to have inspired you to join us in cultivating values of kindness, respect, and friendship, ensuring that all Bay Staters feel connected to their community and enjoy a strong sense of social health, especially those living with disability. As always, we invite you to join us again next month for another episode of Connect. And until then, we hope you reach out and stay connected to those you love and to your neighbors, especially those living alone. Visit us at inlonelinessma.com to watch past episodes of Connect, to learn about the coalition, and find ways you can join the movement helping to alleviate loneliness in the Commonwealth. Thank you.